What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. First and foremost, before we get started, really quickly, make sure you hit that subscribe button, make sure you hit the post notification bell, make sure you hit the like button. Your support is greatly appreciated. We got some football to talk about, folks. The Atlanta Falcons have 3 preseason games coming up in the next few weeks. It's that time of year. It is preseason football time. And there's a lot of things, as you know, there is every year heading into the preseason to talk about. And I really think that, especially when looking at how the Falcons have approached preseason the past couple of years, obviously with some of the different coaches that we've had, including Raheem Morris, they've all kind of had different philosophies. And every team does have a different philosophy with preseason and how they approach it. Some coaches prefer to just sit their guys and not risk injury, and Raheem Morris has proven to be one of those guys. And there's also some other coaches that want to get their guys loose, want to get them a feel for it again of playing, and you really can't argue with that. And I personally would prefer to see them out there just for a little bit, just maybe get 2 or 3 drives in to really just knock all the rust off, because you want all the rust knocked off, at least as much you can knock off as possible prior to the first game of the year, week 1, when it actually counts. But every team approaches preseason differently. Now, with that being said, I think that it needs to be outlined that you should not really expect to see much or really any of Michael Penix this preseason. And I think the same probably applies to Kirk Cousins. I am not expecting much of Penix or Cousins this preseason. Mainly because, obviously, the Falcons, they do not play starters a whole lot, or if at all. And Kirk Cousins, it's a really unique situation with him. Obviously, he didn't play at all in the preseason last year, and maybe because of the fact that he is the number 2 quarterback, you may see him just a little, but I honestly would not be shocked if you don't even see him at all in preseason. The Falcons have already confirmed for this Friday versus the Lions that neither Penix nor Cousins will be playing. It will be Easton Stick and Emory Jones, and I'm going to be honest, I could see that being the case all preseason. I could see it just being Easton Stick and Emory Jones and maybe another quarterback that they were to sign to just have a body in there to compete for that emergency third quarterback spot. That is just the way that the Falcons have navigated preseason. I don't agree with it. I do think that you should get some of that rust knocked off. What I do think differs this year from last year and even some years prior is this year the Falcons are going to have 2 joint practices with the Tennessee Titans next week. And when you have a joint practice with another team, that is pretty much, with the exception of actually not being in Mercedes-Benz Stadium, not having the game jerseys on, you do have your practice jerseys on. That's as close to a preseason game as you can get. So you are still going to have an opportunity to measure where you actually are versus another team and not just versus your own players. You're actually going to see where you stand versus some form of competition. So I do think that that is worth noting. So honestly, when you examine that, I would not anticipate seeing much, or really at all. I would not be shocked if neither Penix or Cousins didn't play at all this preseason. I do not think we're going to see any Michael Penix based off the wording that we have seen from Raheem Morris and Penix himself. And I just think with Kirk, it's a pretty unique situation. I don't agree with it, but it's Raheem Morris's philosophy at the end of the day. So, but there are some things to talk about as far as this preseason does go. Some position battles to talk about. The first position battle that we're going to talk about really quickly is the one at kicker. And Younghoe Koo for many, many years basically his job was really one of the only safe jobs on the team that we didn't question. But last year, of course, Koo, especially down the stretch, he suffered an injury, and that really caused, him to not be able to be the Younghoe Koo that we saw and we knew and we got to know for many years. He missed a lot of key kicks. Some of those kicks cost us some pretty important games. And it was definitely expected in the offseason that we were at the very least going to bring in another leg to have an open competition. The most that I think there has been since Koo has actually arrived here. And we brought in a kicker from Germany, Lenny Craig. He's a former soccer player. And that has really been a competition going on in training camp. And it looked like early on, Craig might give Koo a run for his money. But now, based off what we are hearing, that based off, obviously, the field goal percentage makes, the distance that they're making them from, that I would probably say Koo has his job locked back up at least around 80% at this point. Obviously, you're still going to see both of them playing in preseason, but unless, of course, Koo does not have a good preseason, if Koo is able to hold his own in the preseason and holds it down. Now, we have known Koo in the preseason to miss some kicks, but once again, as long as he can really hold it down, I would expect the Falcons to roll with Younghoe Koo as their starting kicker come week 1. Some other position battles we're going to talk about. 2 on the defensive side of the ball. First one is at that nickel spot. And for the longest time, it really felt like that battle was going to come down between D. Alford, Clark Phillips, and our rookie 4th round pick, Billy Bowman. Raheem Morris confirmed earlier this week that it is going to come down to D. Alford and Billy Bowman for that starting nickel spot. And it's a big opportunity for Billy Bowman to be able to go out and compete for a starting spot. And D. Alford is a player that had some really rough moments last year, especially in that game versus Washington. And you have to believe that, his seat, his job as a starter is pretty hot right now. And there's a lot of pressure on him to come out and show signs this preseason. Because if not, and Billy Bowman holds his own, you could very well see the rookie getting the start in the nickel this season. So that is an open competition that we are going to see this Friday. And another position we're going to talk about is that safety spot opposite of Jesse Bates. And that is a battle that's going to come down to either Jordan Fuller or our rookie 3rd round pick, Xavier Watts. Now, I think the expectation has always been that really no matter what happens in preseason and who is starting week 1, pretty early on in this season, you will probably see Watts take that starting role. Because that's just the type of player that he is. Now, we haven't really seen a whole lot of Xavier Watts really up until recently. He was dealing with some issues, but he did really get out there these past few days, and he's shown signs, but obviously you got to keep in mind he is a rookie. So I would not be shocked if Fuller were to win this starting safety position coming out of the stretch, coming out of preseason, just because you can only, I think, be starting so many rookies week 1 at the same time, because you're going to have the 2 first-round edge rushers, and you may potentially also have Billy Bowman. And with how important of a game week 1 is going to be, you got to have some veteran experience out there. You will definitely see a lot of Xavier Watts this season. I just don't know if it's going to be week 1 as a starter, but he's going to have an opportunity once again to earn that starting job. And if he does, it's going to be really exciting to see this preseason, to see some of these position battles. Some other noteworthy news, we did hear we are going to see Jalen Walker, James Pearce Jr., obviously Xavier Watts, Billy Bowman. We're going to see the rookies that we drafted, including our 2 first-round picks, this Friday night versus the Lions. And we're probably going to see them I would at least anticipate for Walker and Pearce. We're not going to see a whole lot of them. We may see them get a couple of drives in, similar to how they did Penix last year, really to just phase them in, and maybe we see some of them in the second preseason game versus Tennessee, which is also at home. So you definitely do want to get them comfortable playing in Mercedes-Benz Stadium, but it is going to be exciting to see those two out there this Friday night, out on a field, and especially because I talked about with James Pearce Jr. yesterday. With the reports coming out of camp, I am excited to actually see this guy going up against another team, and not just up against his own teammates, but actually against another team. And with the joint practices we're going to have next week versus the Titans, that's also going to be really exciting to see as well, because a lot of fights break out in those joint practices, and I could definitely see James Pearce Jr. being in the center of a couple of those fights. Another few things just before we head out is obviously expectations for the preseason. Preseason is never about wins and losses, but it's just mainly about how your team looks, these position battles that we've talked about, and really seeing where your depth stands. And I think that is what we're going to see. I would not expect to see Jesse Bates. I would not expect to see Bijan, Drake London, much of the starting offense, unless Penix were to play. And that's why I honestly say I do not think we're going to see Michael Penix play this preseason. I don't agree with the decision. I think that you should play them for about 2 or 3 drives. But then again, you're going to have the joint practices versus Tennessee, and that is, I think, as close to a preseason game as you can get without it actually being a preseason game against another team. And the Falcons have been running a lot of 11 on 11 in practice, which they do more so than most teams in the league during training camp. So that is worth noting. So it's not like they're just sitting there playing catch. I mean, they're doing that too, but they are actually doing 11 on 11 with the pads on. But once again, it would definitely be nice to see them get out there and actually play a little in the preseason. Really, I think for most fans, just to actually see them playing again is a beautiful sight. But we know how Raheem Morris rolls. Not a lot of us agree with it. Not a lot of us agree with a lot of things about Raheem Morris. Big year for Raheem Morris, as I think we all know. But with all that being said, appreciate everyone for the support. Football season is very quickly approaching. We are now officially in preseason mode, and obviously these 2 preseason games we're going to have at the Benz, one in Dallas to end off the preseason. I'm probably going to say that the team we will see the most action from this preseason, at least from the opposing side of things, will be the Tennessee Titans. They are the team that had the number 1 pick. They drafted Cam Ward with it. So they have a rookie starting quarterback. We will probably see a lot of Cam Ward throughout that week with the joint practices and the preseason game on Friday the 15th. I do not believe that Detroit is going to play very many of their starters Friday night. They may be playing some, but I don't think we're going to see Jared Goff on Friday night. I don't think we're going to see Jahmyr Gibbs or St. Brown or really much of that offense. Detroit's actually already played a preseason game. And Dallas, I really am not sure about them either. So, as we say, everyone approaches preseason differently. But once again, it's preseason, and that means that the season's right around the corner, and we're now only weeks away. With that being said, I will see you all in the next video, and take care.